Etoro has a major problem to deal with, and if they don't fix it, they're going to ruin the platform and kill their business. And I'll prove it to you. Do you think people are satisfied on Etoro? You can easily prove this by running a poll on Etoro. Have you considered leaving Etoro in the last 12 months? Over 40% of users have. This is a big problem. So what exactly is going on? Why are people unhappy with Etoro? Because when you look at it from the surface, Etoro seems to be gaining more and more users. Let's have a look at Google Trends. You'll see that the long-term trend is that Etoro is growing. But what's been happening recently? Well, there are a few problems with the platform. They are scams and spam. Let's cover spam first, and then we'll get to the juicy scams afterwards. Etoro has a home feed. The home feed is a series of posts by Etoro users. The problem is that most of the feed ends up just being spam. We'll get into it, but there are people on Etoro that get paid to trade and attract other people to Etoro, and that's called the Popular Investor Program. And what you'll see is people will just post, "I'm up X% over and over again," and this keeps happening. My investments have increased 10%, check my profile. Everybody wants to become a popular investor, and this incentivizes people just spamming the feed, trying to gain attention. But there's a much darker problem going on in Etoro, and that's the scams happening. But I'll need to explain some introductory points so you can really understand how bad this is. I was talking about the Popular Investor Program, and one of the most popular people is somebody called Jay Smith. And when you go onto his stats, you can see his performance over time. This informs you whether you want to invest in him. So when you invest, you end up copying his portfolio of stocks, and he gets paid for the assets under management he currently controls. And as you can see, he has lots of copiers and followers. Copiers are the people who are paying money to copy his portfolio. Jay Smith is an example of a good popular investor. You'll see there were brief periods when he had very high returns, and this was from investing in crypto. However, there have been some problems on the site, and I'll show you. One of these people is this account, Moonfund. When you click on the stats, you'll see that the performance has been excellent, up every single month bar one. And interestingly, 2022 was a bad year. Let's look up the S&P 500 performance over this time. You'll see that in 2022, the price actually fell 20% in the markets. But interestingly, Moonfund managed to make very, very high returns of 76%. But did he really actually make 76%? And this is where the problem arises. The problem is that Etoro uses a specific formula to calculate these monthly returns. And I can tell you exactly what that formula is. It's right here. It's public to everybody. Now the problem is that people have worked out how to game this formula to make their returns seem higher than they actually are. And that's exactly what's happened with this account. This person, and I would think purposely, abused the return system to have very high returns even though he wasn't actually making this much money. And I can prove it to you. So in 2022, he apparently made 76%. But if we click on the chart and we look at 2022, if you invested 10,000, you would end the year with around 10,600, just a little bit under, which is less than 6%. So 6% versus the stats page value of 76%. I think you can understand the problem that's going on. So how does this exactly work? You can abuse the system by withdrawing money and adding money at certain times, and it's specifically to do with how dividends work. There's an ex-dividend date, and you can pull money out and put money in at certain times and have a certain monthly crossover, which makes it look like you have higher stats than you actually have. So all of these stats here in 2022 cannot be trusted. Specifically this August month, We can actually see the trades that this person was doing in August by clicking on the portfolio. You have to scroll all the way to the end. But if you go on the history, so we've reached that high month, and you'll see in August in 2022, there are only 4 trades, all making 0.1% each. How is that the same as the 24% that he's making there? Something doesn't make any sense. Well, you can analyze his portfolio, and you look at the history set to 1 year, his actual P&L is minus 2.34%, which is definitely not the same as what's showing up in his stats. So he found a way to manipulate his statistics, and that would be fine if he was an isolated account and nobody could copy you. But he used this to attract a ton of copiers and become very popular on the platform. But in essence, he's a lie, and he's getting paid to do this. Etoro actively pays him every month to manage other people's money. But it's a massive lie. All these people that are investing in him don't really know the truth of what's going on. So it's fraud, and it's very easy to prove. And actually, if you try and message him, he'll delete all your messages and mark them as spam. So Etoro is really weird in that they don't have a proper content moderation system. The way it works is if 3 people mark a post as spam, it gets flagged and removed from the website. But there's nothing really stopping people like this, who are known to abuse parts of the website, making more than one account and just flagging any comments and posts they don't like. And that's exactly what's happened. So you can test this. Go onto this person's page, ask them how they got the very high returns, and it doesn't make sense relative to the chart, and I guarantee he'll delete your post. And I'm not scared. Etoro can delete me for exposing this. And ultimately, it's not actually Etoro's fault that he's done this. He's misleading investors, and people are buying investment products based on lies. So what does the future look like for this account by Martin? Well, if Etoro actually changes the way that the statistics are calculated and fixes all the discrepancies, if this becomes 6%, all of his followers and copiers are going to be rather annoyed that they were misled and cheated. So Etoro is in a difficult situation. Do they fix the problem and maybe even kick Martin off the platform, or do they just hide it, put a band-aid over it, forget about it? And the problem is, if you forget about it and just let it fester for the next 10 years, well, the regulatory body is going to look at that and see it for what it is. It's fraud, and then Etoro has covered up the fraud. I think it's pretty clear that Etoro knows what's going on, because these are massive accounts that are getting paid a ton of money. Each one of these big accounts gets paid money to be on the platform and trade. So you can't really argue they don't know what's going on. I just want to preface that most accounts are completely fine. It's just some accounts have misled investors horribly, and they should be removed from the site, shouldn't they?